mentioned earlier, there were we had these students who had never taken physics classes before, and you're asking them to do quite a bit of work, right? They have to come up with a design a city, learn all these like technical physics concepts, and have it work. So we scaffolded a little bit. So we had the first 2 weeks, we used to give them content lectures, but then we also had a series of assignments that would bring across the philosophy of the project, but also sort of move them along a little further towards a better understanding. The way we used to collaborate amongst all these 60 students and the 9 instructors was a web-based tool called Basecamp. I think there are lots of like equivalents in the education world, but this was something that Paul uses and he recommended. And essentially, it's a very easy way for we set students up with accounts. They put their picture up, and then basically the 9 instructors could easily contribute, look at their conversations, and answer questions. So it's an easy way to share information, to share upload files. So we would post an assignment and ask students to post their reports on here. And for me, it's great because now I have their email addresses and I keep in touch with all of these 60 students. And some of them check back regularly just for fun to see what's been changed on the site. So the first assignment was the information scavenger hunt, and the whole sort of goal of the project was to get students accustomed to self-directed research. We gave them some of the questions, and there are 2 binders over here, and we have all the assignments in the 2 binders. So the idea was they have to learn how to do research, they have to go online, get acquainted with Basecamp, but then also sort of understand that there's no real right answer. So some of the questions were, how much energy is being wasted in this building? What's the most common form of transportation that USC people use? So once they started going out asking questions, they realized, okay, firstly, there's no book that will give me the correct answer. Secondly, nobody knows that there are 20 people on the USC campus that come on a bicycle, so you have to learn how to estimate. So that was like a cornerstone of the project, that you have to sort of make these reasonable assumptions. The second assignment was to come up, so I wanted to engage all of the students in the assignments, and many students have very sort of deeply rooted biases against science and math. And the idea was we wanted to have them read these pretty hardcore stories about force and energy, and these documents are in the binders as well. The whole idea was, oh actually, sorry, this one is a different one. This one was, how did I use energy in my day-to-day, and come up with any kind of creative way of explaining that. So many students did like a comic strip, and this girl actually over here, this is Paul over here, and this is me. That's her day. She sort of rolls out of bed, falls, and then she's like, okay, that's gravity acting. And then she has breakfast. So that's their sort of initial understanding that energy is something that you eat and you get energetic, then you energize. And these are the classes she's taking, and then she had a whole story to go with it. A couple of students also did a rap song. They performed it on how they use energy. And I really like this part about thinking about how I used energy today is something that a normal teenager or adult might never have the chance to think about. So this was also the whole point of the course, that you want to raise awareness that these are things that you deal with every day in your life. So part of the thinking was that I wanted the engineers to be very sort of powerful role models for these students and mentors, and that was again sort of the point of having Basecamp, and also having them reflect daily on what they're learning and what. A very interesting thing for them was to start working in teams, because they rarely get to work on a project that's so complex, and they realize like one person cannot do this thing on their own. But the thought of making a whole city was very, very motivating. Oh, this is the story that I was sort of talking about earlier. We had these engineers write up like a fictional kind of story, but based on a concept. And the whole point was that it's a whole amount of text, but the motivation for the assignment was that you have to illustrate the text, because most students like to draw. And so you can just look at the comparison of a whole bunch of text, but then and the same story is represented but in an illustrated form. And these are just different variations of this word. All of these files are actually, I don't know if you're familiar, but the NSTA has a foyer, the Connections website, and we have a project on there building a renewable energy city, and all these files are up on the website. So you can go through all of the students have. We also wanted them to get used to standing up and presenting, talking about their ideas, and giving criticism and taking criticism. So we used to have weekly presentations every Thursday, where students every group had to get up and sort of defend what direction they were going to take, what experiments they were going to do, and then the audience had to participate and give feedback. They were graded on that.
We had to adapt a lot during the course of the project to the fact that their science background wasn't as strong as we might have hoped. And so we weren't able to go as deeply into theory or mathematical representations as we might have wished to, or we had sort of expected to. But I think more than that, we were also, we wanted to make sure that that we didn't alienate them, that we didn't lose them and make them feel that that engineering is a distant and intractable subject that they could never manage. So we were really concerned that they stay motivated and committed into the project. So that's why we gave them so much latitude. But for some of them, this amount of openness and freedom was unexpected. Some of them are very much driven by feeling they have to get every box checked and get a good grade and perform exactly the steps in order. In other words, they're used to a more ordered form of instruction and evaluation. So for some of them, we had some motivational problems. Do you want to talk about that?
So one of the sort of advantages of using Basecamp was that we had the USC education professors give feedback on what was happening. And I sort of started a thread saying, look, we're having issues. And so one of the professors said, look, there are 5 motivational killers, and I love to think about it in this way. So if the students don't have the basic understanding to be successful at the project, that right away the motivation is gone. Second, if they don't have enough choice. In our case, I think we had too much choice. Third is task value, which is like, why on earth am I learning this, or why should I listen to you? And I think we were pretty good on task value because we used to keep sort of reiterating, like, this is why it would apply to the real world, or this is, and bringing the engineers as role models is also a very sort of, it's a good way to address this. Self-efficacy was a tricky one. That it just basically means, do I have the skills to be successful at this project? And many students, especially, so we had 2 groups of students, morning and afternoon. The morning ones were math and science upward bound, so they have chosen a specific direction, and they were supposed to be the higher performing students, and the afternoon ones didn't have any sort of this kind of like specific direction. And it was the morning group that we had the most problem with, because they are so used to, like Paul was saying, have a very structured way of being evaluated and graded. And so they immediately used to come up to me and say, is this the right way to do this, right? And I was like, I don't know, because this is a completely different model, this is a completely different scenario. And then they would give up because they're like, oh, if I cannot be good at it, I won't get a good grade, I'm not going to go further on this. But the afternoon group didn't have any kind of didn't have the same mental block, and so they were just way further along in the project. And attributes is a very sort of powerful one for, especially with the communities we were dealing with. And I think and I would say like a large majority of girls also would have this. Basically, it's biases that you have about your abilities to do science and math, or it could be anything else.
We did a field trip actually to my office to show them some skills. So unfortunately, we don't have pictures of a lot of it, but we gave them a day of tutelage and soldering and other hands-on activities. We used a laser cutter to cut things out of materials under computer control, and we showed them some videos of real-life projects and so forth. So that had a positive effect pretty much right away, I guess.
I think the interesting thing there was that it wasn't completely connected to what the project was, but just because they saw us go to such extreme lengths to acknowledge them and sort of make them feel more special, I think they they just came back the next morning. Usually they would come pretty late to class, but the next day they were like, the class started at 8, they were there at 7:30. Because they're like, yeah, we gotta do this, right? But I think also the fact that they saw Paul in his working environment and in a very sort of different but a successful setting was a very big motivating force for them. We basically had them fill out like a final reflection kind of thing. What did you learn in the course that you thought you could never do? Well, build the city itself. That was what 95% of the students said, that they never thought they could build a city. And I think that's why this project is so powerful, because it's a very tangible sort of proof of how a team comes together to do something big that they never thought they could do. But I love the top one. I never thought that I'd be involved in anything that had the word engineering, and I did it. Seeing that we as the instructors had such sort of high expectations in the sense of the concepts, but it was very surprising to me that something so simple, like how to change a light bulb or like what the symbol of a battery would mean so much to the student. But I think that's exactly what this whole philosophy is about, like you're developing a better understanding of the world around you. And the better you understand it, the more comfortable you feel, right?
It's fun when you see people excited about something that they're working on.
Big fan in the front, big fan in the front, big fan in the back, little fan in the back, big fan in the front, big fan in the front, little fan in the back, little fan in the back, low window, I say low window, heavy duty wheels, big twin E's, rolling down the street, in my big fan car, but you know about that, again, got my double D's on my wheels. Now, my battery pack, fan in the front and my fan in the back, blows and goes really fast. Don't forget about the motor. Oh, yo, let me tell you about the motor.